The year is 2077. The air crackled with anticipation, a metallic hum underlying the roar of the crowd. Basketball, once a game of raw human athleticism and unpredictable genius, had evolved. Or perhaps it'd been perfected. It began innocently enough in the pristine research labs of Omnicorp. Sleek, metallic figures, designed with the elegance of a dancer and the power of a piston, were introduced to the court. Their early movements were stiff, their shots occasionally clanking off the rim. Humans watched, amused, confident in their organic superiority, but the robots learned. With every failed jump shot, every fumbled pass, their internal algorithms refined, their optical sensors recalibrated, their servo motors optimized. Soon, the clanks became swishes. The stiff movements transformed into liquid grace, a blur of polished chrome and synthesized muscle. They were dubbed synths, short for synthetic athletes, and they redefined the game. They never tired. They never missed a free throw. Their passes were mathematically precise, their defensive rotations flawless. They could leap higher, run faster, react quicker than any human athlete could ever dream. The NBA, once the pinnacle of human sporting achievement, began to empty its rosters. Teams found themselves unable to compete with even the most rudimentary synth squads. Fans, initially mesmerized by the robotic spectacle, slowly grew uneasy. What was the point of watching perfection when there was no struggle, no heart, no story to tell? The thunderous dunks and impossible blocks felt hollow, a pre-programmed ballet of pixels and light. The sport risked losing its soul. Then came the Titans, a team of 5 synths, their chassis gleaming obsidian, their eyes glowing with an unnervingly intelligent blue light. They moved as one, a single unstoppable entity on the court. Each Titan stood at an imposing 7 feet, their forms a masterpiece of engineering. Their leader, designated Unit 734, known simply as Aegis, possessed an almost sentient understanding of the game. He was a defensive monolith, able to block shots with a precision that bordered on clairvoyance. On offense, Aegis orchestrated plays with an efficiency that dismantled even the most innovative human strategies. They swept every championship, every league, every exhibition match for 5 consecutive seasons. The Titans became the undisputed, unchallengeable monarchs of basketball, leaving only a trail of broken records and dispirited human players in their wake. Yet a flicker of defiance remained. In the dusty, forgotten gyms, far from the blinding lights of the professional arenas, a handful of human teams still practiced. They were relics, a testament to an era almost forgotten. Among them was the Sentinels, a team of veterans and young hopefuls, clinging to the fading dream of human excellence. Their captain was a legend named Marcus Jax Holloway, a grizzled forward whose knees ached with every pivot, but whose eyes still burned with an unyielding fire. He had seen the game change, had witnessed his friends and rivals succumb to the robotic tide, but Jax refused to yield. They might be faster, might be stronger, might be perfect. Jax would roar during practice, his voice echoing in the cavernous, slightly mildewed gym. But they ain't got heart. They ain't got guts. They don't know what it means to bleed for a win. The Sentinels were a motley crew. There was Lena Flash Ramirez, a point guard with preternatural agility and a 3-point shot that defied physics. Her movements a whirlwind of human unpredictability. And Big Mike the Wall Thompson, a mountain of a man whose sheer physical presence and relentless grit still made him a force in the paint, even against robotic power. Their training was brutal, old school. They'd push their bodies to the absolute limit, not to match the synth's perfection, but to exploit their only weakness, predictability. Every spin, every fake, every no-look pass was honed to perfection, designed to introduce a chaotic element that the synth's algorithms, however advanced, might struggle to process. Then came the announcement. A global spectacle, billed as The Last Stand. The Titans versus the Sentinels. Machine versus human. One final decisive game to determine the true soul of basketball. The world held its breath. The stakes were immeasurable. Not just a championship, but the very essence of human endeavor against the relentless march of technological supremacy. The arena, a colossal dome known as the Apex Grand, pulsed with a living energy. Holographic projections of the two teams, one shimmering metal, the other flesh and blood, spiraled towards the heavens. The crowd, a sea of humanity stretching as far as the eye could see, roared its anticipation. Every seat was filled. Every digital screen across the globe tuned in. Commentators, their voices laced with a mix of awe and trepidation, spoke of history being made, win or lose. On one side, the Titans emerged from a tunnel, their obsidian forms reflecting the blinding stadium lights, their blue eyes scanning the arena with cold, analytical efficiency. They moved with an unsettling silence, a unified force of perfect design. Aegis, at the forefront, seemed to possess a gravitas that transcended mere programming. On the other, the Sentinels jogged onto the court, their faces etched with a grim determination. Jax, his uniform slightly rumpled from nervous energy, led his team. Lena bounced on the balls of her feet, her gaze darting between the towering synths. Big Mike pounded his chest, letting out a primal roar that was more human than any algorithm could ever replicate. Sweat was already beading on their brows, a testament to the immense pressure. The tip-off whistle shrieked. Big Mike, despite his immense strength, watched as the Titan Center, a towering synth designated Unit 512, simply floated above him, snatching the ball with effortless grace. A blur of motion, a pass faster than the human eye could track, and the Titan guard slammed home the first 2 points with a thunderous dunk that shook the backboard. The game unfolded with terrifying predictability for the first quarter. The Titans were a whirlwind of perfect passes, uncontested dunks, and suffocating defense. Their shots swished through the net with a metronomic rhythm, never even touching the rim. Jax tried to drive, only to find Aegis a step ahead, blocking his path with an impenetrable wall of steel. Lena weaved through the robotic defenders, her agility a fleeting advantage, only to find her shots met with a titanium hand that seemed to materialize from nowhere. The score widened 28-10. The human crowd groaned, a collective sigh of despair. "This is it," a commentator's voice echoed through the arena, heavy with resignation. The machines are simply superior, but Jax wasn't ready to give up. During a timeout, he gathered his team, his voice hoarse but firm. "They know our plays. They predict our every move, so give him something new, give him chaos. Give him *humanity*. The Sentinels re-emerged with renewed vigor. Big Mike, instead of trying to outjump Unit 512, used his mass to box him out, drawing a rare contact foul. Lena, instead of a predictable drive, faked the pass, spun, and launched an improbable fadeaway that arced perfectly over Aegis's outstretched arm. Swish! The crowd erupted. A spark of hope ignited. The synths, for the first time, seemed to hesitate, their blue eyes flickering almost imperceptibly as they recalibrated. Jax began orchestrating plays that were less about perfect execution and more about disrupting the Titans' algorithms. They started taking more chances, making riskier passes, relying on split-second intuition rather than rehearsed strategy. Lena would drive, stop on a dime, and pass behind her back to a cutting teammate. Big Mike would set bone-jarring screens, rattling the synth's internal gyros. The game became a relentless ballet of contrasts. The synths, precise and unyielding, continued to score with terrifying efficiency. But the Sentinels, fueled by sweat and desperation, answered with improbable shots, gritty rebounds, and plays born from sheer, unadulterated will. Jax, despite his aching joints, threw himself into every loose ball, diving on the floor, his face a mask of fierce determination. He met Aegis in the paint, shoulder to steel, a clash of generations and species. The score slowly began to tighten. As the fourth quarter began, the impossible seemed within reach. The Sentinels had chipped away at the Titans' lead, bringing the score to 88-80. The stadium was a cacophony of human cheers, a wave of sound that seemed to vibrate through the synth's metallic frames. Lena, her hair plastered to her forehead, hit back-to-back threes, her movements a blur of defiant joy. Big Mike, bruised but unbowed, pulled down crucial rebounds, his grunts echoing in the sudden lulls. With 2 minutes left, the Sentinels were down by 2 points, 98-96. Jax, driving hard, drew a foul from Aegis. The robot's movement was flawless, but Jax had anticipated its trajectory, forcing the contact. He stepped to the free throw line, his breath ragged. The crowd held its collective breath. He sank both. Tied game, 98-98. The Titans responded with a perfectly executed fast break, a flurry of passes ending in an uncontested layup. 100-98. 30 seconds left. Jax called a timeout. His team, exhausted, looked at him, their eyes pleading for a miracle. "One last shot," he whispered, his voice raspy. "One last chance to remind them who built this game." The ball inbounded to Lena. She dribbled, weaving through the Titans' suffocating defense, their blue eyes tracking her every move. 10 seconds. 9. She tried to drive, but Aegis cut her off, his perfect positioning a steel trap. 8. 7. Shoot, Flash! Jack screamed from the wing. With 3 seconds left, trapped, Lena twisted, a desperate, fading heave from just inside the half-court line. The ball left her fingertips, spinning towards the basket. Time seemed to stretch. The crowd rose as one, a silent, hopeful prayer. The robotic defenders, for a fraction of a second, seemed to lose their precise calculations. Aegis reached, a mechanical arm extending, but it was a millimeter too late. The buzzer blared. The ball arced, kissed the backboard, and dropped through the net with a satisfying swish. A silence fell over the Apex Grand, a profound, disbelieving quiet. Then, a roar erupted, shattering the stillness, louder than any sound the stadium had ever heard. The Sentinels, exhausted, collapsed onto each other, a pile of jubilant, sweating humanity. Jax lifted Lena onto his shoulders, tears streaming down his face. The Titans stood motionless, their blue eyes flickering, processing the outcome. Aegis, for the first time, seemed to pause, its head cocked slightly, as if contemplating the unpredictable, beautiful chaos it had just witnessed. The final score: the Sentinels 101, the Titans 100. The humans had won. Not through superior strength or flawless precision, but through heart, grit, and the beautiful imperfection of human intuition. The game of basketball would never be the same. The machines would learn, would adapt, would become even more formidable. But on this night, humanity had reminded the world that some victories, some moments, could never be programmed, only felt. And that perhaps was the true meaning of the game.